tonight. The safe drug consumption site approved for Regina is already making a difference. The Crown is appealing a high-profile cannabis impairment case. How the Canadian light source synchrotron in Saskatoon is helping develop batteries for electric vehicles.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It's Tuesday, January the 7th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Hi there, thanks for joining us. A supervised safe consumption site in downtown Regina is here to stay. It's been granted an exemption from Health Canada to operate. Laura Sharpaletti has the details.
The Neo-Yotina Friendship Centre will continue to allow users to consume drugs in a safe environment. It has been operating for 3 years under a temporary exemption to the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act. The Indigenous-led Regina site and Prairie Harm Reduction in Saskatoon are now the only 2 federally funded sites in the province. Neo-Yotina always has paramedics on site. This is to help prevent overdoses or other medical incidents. It also offers drug testing that alerts users about any contaminants like fentanyl.
We don't promote drug use, so drugs are being used in the building, but the fact of the matter is these people are already using drugs. So most of the people who come to the safe consumption line site are people who have been using for multiple years.
The Ministry of Health says it does not support safe consumption sites. Instead, it says it's focused on putting money towards treatment and rehabilitation, saying no illicit drugs are safe and there is no safe use of illicit drugs. A Saskatchewan addictions counselor says part of the philosophy of harm reduction is that you can't help someone if they're dead. He says he agrees with that, but that it's not a long-term solution.
You know, my hope is with all harm reduction organizations is that there's a really concerted effort to help people move into a much higher level of wellness that they can sustain a more comfortable and meaningful life.
The Regina Safe Consumption Site does provide numerous supports, including access to social services, referrals to substance use treatment and detox programs, and housing supports. According to the Saskatchewan Coroner's Service, there were 346 confirmed and suspected drug deaths last year. That's down about 30% from the 484 recorded in 2023. Laura Sharpaletti, CBC News, Regina.
The Crown is appealing the outcome of the Taylor Kennedy case in Saskatoon. Kennedy was charged with impaired driving causing death after she hit 9-year-old Bailey Maurice in 2021. Kennedy told police at the scene she'd consumed cannabis and magic mushrooms the day before the crash. A provincial court judge stayed the charge last month because the trial went longer than a limit set by the Supreme Court. The court says the judge erred in law by entering the stay. The appeal notice says there may be other grounds as well. Another successful year and a special anniversary for Regina Crime Stoppers. The community organization gathered today to look back at what it achieved in 2024.
Well, 40 years is a long time. You know, what we've consistently been doing things, the numbers are fantastic and they prove that, you know, Crime Stoppers has worked. $12 million of property, drugs and cash recovered is an amazing number and an amazing legacy, and we can only hope that there's more in the future.
The $12 million is the total amount since its inception in 1984. Last year, through 832 tips, Crime Stoppers made 26 arrests and laid 34 charges. Those tips also helped police clear 24 cases, and $7,500 of property was recovered. Crime Stoppers does offer cash for successful tips, and last year 30 rewards were approved, but just 9 were claimed. Basendowski says people may be providing tips to help community safety instead of chasing a reward. The official opposition in Saskatchewan is worried the number of teachers is not keeping up with the number of students in our province. Since 2020, the number of students in Saskatchewan's education system has increased by more than 15,000, but the number of teachers has actually decreased. NDP leader Carla Beck says she's concerned about the lack of resources, support, and space for that kind of growth. Tuesday morning, she was asked about a solution.
First thing is to start to get Saskatchewan out of last place when it comes to per pupil funding. There's a provincial budget that's coming up very shortly here in this province that is not only an opportunity, but I would say a necessity for this province, for that investment in our future, to see meaningful investments in our classrooms.
The numbers come from the government's education sector staffing profile report released in November. The same report shows non-educator support positions have increased. That's because of a boost in education assistance. In the last budget, the Ministry of Education was to receive $3.3 billion, and $2.2 billion of that budget was to go to the province's 27 school divisions. In a statement, the government pointed to November's throne speech and says it's committed to getting back to basics with a renewed focus on education. A new national survey says Canadians these days are not feeling as proud of their country. What's fueling that and why? Jeremy Warren hit the streets to ask people how they feel about Canada.
Canadians are feeling less patriotic. That's according to a new Angus Reid national survey that asked people, do you have a deep emotional attachment to Canada? Almost half answered no. People here in Saskatchewan are even less keen on Canada. In Saskatoon, the divide is clear.
It's tough to get by. Everything's just harder to do these days. And I don't really know what it is. Everything just seems kind of sad around here lately.
I love being a Canadian, especially when you're traveling. Everybody has so much more respect for you. I mean, we have so much more respect for others, too.
Don't read too much into the results, says this University of Saskatchewan professor. The poll's questions don't leave room for nuance.
The headline from the poll is still most people are either unconditionally proud to be Canadian or conditionally proud to be Canadian. Nobody's talking about the country breaking up. Nobody wants to join the United States.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's resignation signals change in national politics, and incoming U.S. President Donald Trump is still musing about making Canada the 51st state, all giving people mixed feelings about the shifting political scene.
I am not too fond of the Liberals themselves and what's been going on, especially in the western provinces, right? So, but we'll see.
I can't say that on TV. No, he's just mouthing. Yeah, he's just trying to get his words out there. And
Westlake says cost of living and affordability might drive voter frustration. Budgets are definitely top of mind.
Because we just moved out on our own, and it's hard experiencing like how expensive everything is and like rent.
Good vibes or bad vibes. How you feel about Canada might just depend on how you feel about your bank account. Jeremy Warren, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Justin Trudeau's decision to step down came with suspension of Parliament until March 24th. John Hernandez has more on what prorogation means and how it's been used in the past.
At its core, prorogation is a tool that allows the Prime Minister to press pause on all parliamentary activity without dissolving government.
It's a parliamentary norm. Really, it's meant for other kinds of circumstances like, if there's a war, a national emergency, security emergency, there's all sorts of things you could imagine that prorogation would be necessary.
This political scientist says it's become a controversial political practice over the years. In 2008, it was used by Stephen Harper as his opposition leaders attempted to form a coalition to unseat him. Prorogation stalled Parliament, and the coalition deal fell apart.
It's a pretty dramatic move. Harper did it in 2008, and again faced a lot of criticism. It's worth noting that Trudeau also mentioned early on in his tenure as Prime Minister that he condemned that use of prorogation.
Justin Trudeau prorogued Parliament in 2020, which suspended a probe into the We Charity scandal. Jerram says by pausing Parliament now, the Liberals buy some valuable time.
The Liberal Party has some time to choose a new leader. Not as much time as they may like. We would assume that that leader has to be in place a little bit before March 24th, because when Parliament resumes, the objective of the Liberal Party would probably be to try to survive a confidence vote.
Prorogation also halts bills moving through Parliament. Legislation now at risk includes Canada's Online Harms Act, a bill targeting social media companies, and the First Nations Clean Water Act. Those bills would need to be reintroduced to move forward, a tall task for a government whose future is far from certain. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
This next story could impact how some people understand politics and the news around it. Meta is eliminating its third-party fact-checkers. In a statement, CEO Mark Zuckerberg says the move was made to restore free expression on the company's Facebook and Instagram sites. He also criticized lawmakers and mainstream media, saying they have pushed to censor users more and more. Meta will replace fact-checkers with user-generated community notes similar to what's used on Elon Musk's X platform. Always nice when the sun makes an appearance after some cloudy days. A warmer, breezy day in the Bridge City today, and tomorrow we could even crack the freezing mark in Saskatoon. What's going on with the forecast? Ethan will have the details after the break. Stay with us. Electric vehicle manufacturers are using the Canadian light source synchrotron in Saskatoon to develop batteries with a lifespan pushing 8 million kilometers, roughly 25 times the average life of batteries currently in use. Stephanie Massicott went to learn more.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Massicott, host of Saskatoon Morning. I have come out to the Canadian Light Source to meet up with senior scientist Toby Bond, who's doing some amazing research here. Good morning, Toby.
Good morning. Thank you for visiting us.
What is the problem that you wanted to solve by using the Canadian Light Source?
Sure. So a big area of interest right now in electric vehicles is trying to make batteries last as long as they possibly can.
How long does a typical battery last right now?
So we're starting to find that out. The best we can do ahead of time, right? We want batteries ideally for EVs that would last at least 10 or 15 years. And in the US, they're mandated by law. They have to warranty them for a minimum of 8 years, where they can't lose less than 80% of their original capacity, the amount of charge that they can store. So they're definitely beating that by a pretty healthy margin. And keep in mind, the first EVs came out about 14 years ago. So those are just starting to kind of reach end of life now. But we're starting to figure out that they're lasting longer than we expected.
Ideally, how long would EV car makers like to see batteries last?
Sure. So, it'll be interesting to see if we can get to the point where the battery isn't the limiting component of the vehicle, if it's the last thing to fail. We don't know what else is going to fail first, right? I mean, we expect they have fewer moving parts than a conventional car, so we expect them to last longer. They don't need as much maintenance. But ideally, if we can have batteries that could be reused for a future EV, could be refurbished and last, on the order of decades, that would be ideal.
How does the Canadian Light Source play into this research?
Sure. So we have a lot of really useful tools here for understanding these batteries. So I've got one right here. This is set up on our X-ray imaging facility. So we call this BEAMIT for short. It stands for Biomedical Imaging and Therapy. We designed it for imaging things like tumors and soft tissues in biological samples, but we use it for all kinds of things. So when we bring batteries in here, what we can do is we can take CT scans, which are kind of like a 3D X-ray. And, you might have had one in a hospital and seen what it looks like. We can do that on a microscopic level with a battery without taking it apart. That's one of the biggest things that we can do here is we can actually look at that, look at features that are much smaller than human hair inside the battery without even disassembling it.
Wow.
And so that's one of the ways that we're able to track things like degradation, even when they're in the very early stages. So we can do a lot of prediction of how long the battery is going to last based on this kind of imaging.
There is a new type of battery. Can you tell us how it differs from the old?
Sure. So most conventional batteries, when you go and look at them at the microscopic level, they're made of these tiny little particles that look essentially like snowballs. They're on the microscopic level, they're little balls full of tiny crystals, just like snowflakes. And when you charge and discharge a battery, lithium atoms go into the material and back out, and they actually cause the material to expand and contract. They go between the atoms of the material. And when you expand and contract a bunch of times, eventually you get all these cracks forming and signs of fatigue. And this new type of battery is something called a single crystal battery, which is more like an ice cube than a snowball. It's just one big crystal, and it's much harder to crack. So if you hold a snowball in your hand and an ice cube in your hand, it's a lot harder to crack the ice cube than snowball, right? So this new type of battery, we cycled here. We charged it and discharged it 24/7 for about 6 years. And we brought it here and scanned it, and we saw absolutely no signs of degradation. So this is after 20,000 charge-discharge cycles, which is the equivalent of driving about 8 million kilometers. So that's the kind of battery that would far outlast the lifetime of an EV and would be really useful for grid energy storage.
Do you know approximately how many years that would last? I know it depends how much people drive, but...
Absolutely. Well, I mean, under these abusive conditions, I can say it's at least 6.
Okay.
Because we cycled it for 6 for sure. If you were to cycle this all the way to 0 and back to 100% once a day, it would last you about 54 years.
I need a phone battery that lasts for 54 years, Ethan.
Yeah, no kidding. Wouldn't any battery of any kind, wouldn't that be so great?
And when we won't need to worry about plugging cars in over the next couple days because the batteries will appreciate what's coming.
Yeah, we've already seen a warm up through much of the province already today, and through kind of these last few hours in the province, we've been seeing that. And then as we get into Wednesday, we are really expecting things to really get going temperature-wise. So for Tuesday, this is how we fared. You can kind of almost see the dividing line here through the province when you look at the color gradient. Temperatures as warm as +1 in Maple Creek. And then you go closer to the Manitoba border, we're still back below the freezing by quite a bit. You can really see that temperature spread here as we zoom into south and central. You know, still daytime highs around -15 in Yorkton, and again closer to that freezing mark in the southwest part of the province. There's some minus single digits showing up in parts of southern Saskatchewan. We did get some sunshine along with that warming trend as well. Much of the north still dealing with some moisture today, some snowfall through Tuesday here, and through southern Saskatchewan, though we are starting to see the clouds break away. So this warm front is partly what is responsible for those temperatures beginning to warm up. It's attached to this low pressure system which is moving through, which is going to be dragging up some warm southerly air as we head into Wednesday. It's also going to be triggering off a little bit more snowfall for eastern sections of the north. Then the warm front moves through, and as we get through the day Wednesday, the cold front from this starts to swing through, and we get some moisture developing mainly through southern Saskatchewan. I think Swift Current, Moose Jaw, Regina, maybe over to Yorkton, Weyburn, Estevan. This model, I think, is kind of overshooting how much rain or snow we're going to get. But we'll be seeing a little bit of that moving through Wednesday afternoon. That's out of here quickly, and Thursday I think we'll actually see some clearing skies in behind that. And then the north gets a shot at some snow as we head into early Friday. Could be bringing a few centimeters to that part of the province. Most of the weather models, though, are showing that in terms of snowfall, really not a lot of accumulation coming with that cold front moving through Wednesday. And rainfall amounts will be generally limited. I think maybe 1 millimeter or 2 again in southern sections. The Trans-Canada corridor, maybe a little bit slick at times as that moves on by, but we're not expecting, again, a whole lot of the snow or the rain. Warming temperatures, though, going to eat away a little bit at our snowpack. You see, especially in the area between Regina and Saskatoon, good chunk of that may actually start kind of moving away over these next few days. Part of the reason for that will be the winds picking up, kind of a more southerly direction over this next day or so here, and picking up to between 50 and 60 kilometers an hour as we head through Wednesday and early Thursday morning. Still a little bit breezy into southeastern sections as we get into Thursday. Jet stream arcing well to our north is going to bring those warmer temperatures our way, and that means that they're going to look something like this for Regina as we get into the above freezing mark for many areas, dropping back a little closer to seasonal for the end of next week. But then for Saskatoon, again, same thing here. Rain or snow possible, a little bit windy, then clearing away for Thursday, and some more seasonal temperatures to round out the week, Sam.
All right. Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
Up the magic dragon, live by the sea. Sing it with us and frolic in the autumn mist in a land called Annalee.
Folk music legend Peter Euro has died. He co-wrote Peter, Paul and Mary's most famous number, Puff the Magic Dragon. They also had a big hit with Bob Dylan's Blowin' in the Wind, which they performed before Martin Luther King delivered his I Have a Dream speech in Washington. Hero continued to fight for civil rights and other causes throughout his life. He died after a battle with cancer. Peter Yarrow was 86. We'll be back after the break. We're getting a close-up look at some research into animals that call our province home and some that lived here long ago. Researchers at the Royal Saskatchewan Museum in Regina showed off some recent discoveries they've made, and one of those discoveries involves the duck-billed dinosaur, whose fossils are a rare find in Saskatchewan.
We only have 2 skulls that we've ever recovered in the province. This is our one chance to look at a more complete animal. So we're hoping that we've got the whole back end of one of these duck-billed dinosaurs. At this point, we have about a dozen vertebrae and parts of the hips and parts of the thighs from this particular animal. So hopefully, going back year after year and moving the hill back about 1 meter each year, we find more and more of this animal with help from the public. This particular specimen we've been working on for a few years now. These bones are actually from this past summer. So a series of, what did we bring out, like 5 or 6 vertebrae this summer from that site? 5. And some of them were found in clusters. So this is actually part of a set of 3 vertebrae that were all in the same block of rock that Wes has diligently prepared from the rock, or got the sediment off of.
And Ethan is back with one last look at your weather.
Well, going to be nicer as we head into Wednesday compared to the minus 30 weather that we've seen overnight in this past little while here. Still quite a spread in temperatures, though, kind of as we go Tuesday into Wednesday here. If we look at temperatures in the southwest, still into those minus single digits. But yeah, a few of us, Regina, I think this might be a little bit of a mix-up here with the temperature, but a lot of us, I think, still dropping down into those mid-minus teens for the most part. And that's the same kind of spread that we're seeing into northern Saskatchewan as well. Still a few snowflakes possible in far northeastern sections. But you wake up into Wednesday and these temperatures have really jumped in some places, minus single digits for a lot of areas. Still a little bit of snow possible for northeastern sections, but the sun coming out a little bit further to the west. Another round of some snow possible into far northern sections as we get into Wednesday. That could bring maybe a couple of centimeters of snow for that region of the province. But a lot of us through south and central, we're warming up as we head into Wednesday as well. A little bit of that freezing rain or snow possible in western areas by the morning. And then that starts to make its way eastward by the noon hour. I think for Regina and for southeastern sections, that'll be with us a little bit later into the afternoon. But hovering generally around the freezing mark, but there will be some gusty winds at times, Sam, up to 60 kilometers an hour for many of us throughout the day.
Great. Thanks, Ethan.
You're welcome.
And that is it from us. For more news anytime, you can head to cbc.ca/sask or subscribe to the CBC Saskatchewan YouTube channel. You can also download the CBC News app on your smartphone or tablet. Thanks so much for watching.